Hey, I'm Chris, and this is MMA for You. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC 208. But before I get into that, I'd like to plug a couple things. First will be my author's website at www.chrismondong.com. The other one is my storytelling podcast, Chris's Storytelling Corner. Uh, Links to find those will be provided in the description. Okay, on to this analysis here. This card, in my opinion, wasn't very good. As far as like just being aesthetically pleasing and entertaining. Yeah, Dustin Poirier versus Jim Miller was fun. Um, the Randomie versus Home was alright. A lot of other fights were grinders. Jacare got a finish and got the only finish of the card. Some fights are alright. Others were just grinders. Um, and yeah, it just didn't really do much for a lot of fighters. Um, so it kind of kept some fighters in place. Uh, Others, yeah, got a boost, but not too many. My picks are actually pretty good. I got 8 out of 10. The two that I missed were Bilal Muhammad versus Randy Brown and Anderson Silva versus Derek Brunson. Even though I think most people thought Brunson should have won that one. Bonuses. Jacare got performance of the night, while Poirier versus Miller took home fight of the night. There's only one performance of the night because Jacare was the only finish in this event out of 10 fights. Which is strange because I thought they still give performance bonuses despite not getting a finish. I thought that was a thing. Um, and if that were the case, well, yeah. But I'm fine with that. So, let's get started. In the main event, Jermaine Durandamy, uh, I pronounce it in different ways, defeated Holly Holm by unanimous decision. So, um, there was some controversy here with the referee Todd Anderson. Uh, excuse me. So there were these strikes that happened after the bout. Now I've heard a couple things here. One thing I've heard is that the fight or the round doesn't end until the ref stops the action, not the horn. I think there is some sort of rule that actually explains the horn, though. So I'm not really too sure about the ruling there. The other thing is that the randomie was striking in mid combination. Now that argument I don't give too much credence to because I can understand mid punch and I think that's all right. But she was striking in mid combination. I don't find that to be a strong argument per se. Um, there's also other arguments that like the crowd noise, and whatnot makes it hard to hear. If that's the case, then more fighters would be throwing strikes after the round. I mean, one of them after the second round was actually wobbled Holly Holm, so it actually did compromise her. The fight itself was really odd in the sense that it was an okay fight. One of the problems is Holm tried to wrestle. She just can't wrestle. I mean, she went for this high crotch that was done wrong, which she kept going to over and over again. She never got her hips lower than her opponent's hips to complete certain takedowns. Um, I get it. It's not her background to offensively wrestle, and she doesn't actually try to get offensive takedowns on her opponents that much. She got one on like Ronda Rousey, but otherwise is not known for offensive takedowns. Has shown pretty good takedown defense and ability to get back to her feet, despite the fact that she gives up her back. Obviously, you'd want to wrestle against Jermaine Durandamy because in fights that the 3 fights she's lost, she has gotten taken down, sometimes multiple times. Um, this fight actually showed what's wrong with Holly Holm's style. One, her yells are total tells to when she's striking or feinting, and she kind of does those yells before she throws a strike or a feint. The other problem is the same problem that happened with her against Shevchenko. She she kind of whiffs on punches to begin her striking combination, and all the opponent has to do is step back and throw a counter strike. And Shevchenko did that multiple times in her fight against Holm. Step back, left hook counter, lead counter. But to Durandamy, it was step back, throw the right hand counter. I mean, that was it. That's all you had to do against Holm. Easier said than done, but like Durandamy was doing that. I did feel that Durandamy was not. I understand that Holm is a counter striker, and maybe you want to counter Holm because she just can't lead. She just cannot lead. She telegraphs her strikes, and she actually displays one of the problems with the Winklejohn system of striking. And you'll see it with Carlos Condit. Not so much with like Cerrone because like he trains with Gibson and whatnot. But Condit's another example of this, and that is that they have a set number of combinations that they use at different times. And most fighters have certain combinations that they like granted. Um, but their whole striking arsenal is based upon combo A, B, C, D, E, and F, maybe G, H, or whatever. You know, just a limited amount of combinations. And they just stick with those combinations over and over again with very little variance. And it is painfully obvious with Holly Holm. She goes for the same, like, I think it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, then a head kick. I mean, that's it. And then she'll move around, throw the side kick. I mean, it's just, she has this, like, set combination, set strikes that she uses, but, you know, very rarely do you see her have any real variance. Condit actually has that same problem too. You actually just see him use a lot of the same combinations. And like I said, granted, most fighters have some form of combination that they like. Jose Aldo has the overhand right, left of the body, right leg kick. But for the most part, there's a sense of like, I guess, variance. You know, it's like sometimes they'll throw something that is probably practiced for sure, but they'll practice a counter, but it's not just set combinations, set combinations. Like it's not like Holmes setting up her strikes with a jab, with a jab. She's coming in and punching air, and that's how she sets up her strikes. And it's like, okay, that you keep getting countered doing this exact same thing. It's kind of hard to explain, but like, I've read up on it too with some of the technique analysts and whatnot. In the clinch, I mean, Holm did manage to get Durandamy back against a cage. I'll say this right now. I don't think she did much. I actually think at times Durandamy did a couple more with her knees and threw the harder strikes into clinch at times. So, Yeah, and I was actually a bit surprised, despite everything. I was still surprised that Terandami won the fight by unanimous decision. I actually thought that Holm just did a little more. Because I think the problem with Terandami was that she just didn't do a lot. I mean, she was waiting so much. And I was a bit surprised. And granted, I did feel got the harder shots in. She doesn't get a lot of them in. Um, I mean, Holm did drop her with the left and hit her with that head kick. But I thought just overall, as far as his harder shots go, more damaging blows, I thought that the Randami got the more damaging blows. Um, I I kind of thought that Holm just did a little more. That's all. Granted, I picked the Randami to win. Well, like I said, I think that Derondami did overall hit some pretty hard strikes on home. With that said, I guess Derondami, you know what, actually, let me continue on actually with this too, and segue into what this means too. Actually, what first I will say that Deron Dami probably gets Chris Cyborg next. If not, Megan Anderson would be cool. I don't know what Holly Holm does because, and I guess this segues into the UFC women's featherweight division. I don't know if she stays or goes. Honest truth, I really don't know because as of right now, the UFC women's featherweight division has three fighters in it: Holly Holm, Jermaine Durandami, and Chris Cyborg. Okay, so if Holm, with that being the case, I can't really say she fights anyone at 145 unless they move up. At 135, there are fighters coming off losses like Pena or Zingano who Holm can fight next, who I think would be good matchups for her. So, you now have women's featherweight. I have been very opposed to implementing this division into the UFC for this reason. Level of talent, or just quality of talent that exists, and lack of quantity. Uh, Honestly, there just aren't a lot of fighters with even just solid quantity or quality of skill. If you, I've watched a good amount of women's featherweight fights. The level of skill is pretty bad. I mean, you know, you can get fights like Faith Van Doon versus Amanda Bell, and it's Amanda Bell charging at her, just brawling with her, and when she takes her down, just going for the most reckless ground and pound that gets her triangled. And then Faith Van Doon gets a title shot against Chris Cyborg. It's not a great fight. It's a fun fight. There is a finish, and I'll give women's featherweight that you have such low quality of opposition that there are openings for finishes and more opportunities to finish opponents because the fighters in that division just have so many holds. I mean, one of the better featherweight fights was Megan Anderson versus Charmaine Tweet, and that was a fun fight. It was a sloppy fight, but it was definitely a fun fight. And honestly, like as far as like skill level goes, I mean, Tweet's one of the better featherweights out there. I hate to be so insulting too, because I want this division to eventually be something. I just don't think it's much of anything at this point. It's just lacking. The only real star prospect you have is Megan Anderson. She's young. She's a legit 145er. She has a fan-friendly style. She looks to be improving, at least offensively. Defensively, she needs a lot of work. Um, and Dana White has said in multiple interviews he did not want to have this division in the UFC, but now that they have it, they'll roll with it. I mean, like this was not in the cards. It's there because Chris Cyborg can draw. Um, she gets good television ratings, and I guess I don't know about, she's never main evented a pay per view, but she was a featured uh, she had a featured fight in one of the pay per views at one point, so she could be something of a draw. Um, can see fighters moving from women's bantamweight, which is actually, as far as quantity goes, the lowest quantity division in the UFC right now, moving up to 145. I can see Ashley Evans Smith moving up. She is huge for 135 and has missed weight for that weight class. Holm is big for the weight class. Jermaine Durandami. Um, there's others that are perfect for 135 and or can probably cut to 125. And there's probably more that can cut to 125 than move up to 145 and not be small for the weight class. I mean, I remember when Julia Budd fought Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes is big for 135. She looked small against Julia Budd. Still wrecked her. Granted, she still wrecked her, but she just looked small um, compared to or Amanda Nunes looked small compared to Julia Budd. That's another problem too. Is that Bellator has Marloes Kunin, Julia Budd, who are like two of the top 145ers. And Alexis DeFries, who beat Marloes Kunin, who can't make weight though. So we can't even say she's a true like featherweight at this point. She might be a lightweight at this point. Um, so you got some of the top women's featherweights in Bellator. And I gotta say right now too, Julia Budd has some of the. I mean, she is a grinder through and through. Despite having the kickboxing background, she has some of the least aesthetically pleasing fights that I've seen. Really, Marloes Kunin is getting older. I mean, this is not a strong division at all. I'm just gonna be flat out right now. Um, she's getting older. She doesn't have a lot of power in her strikes, but she has a great submission ability. Um, but the fact of the matter is, there isn't a lot of talent. They can make a season of tough, and I'd guess that they'd probably have 100 natural 135ers on there. Um, that would move up to 145. And we'll probably see some more 135ers moving up to 145 because, hey, why not? If I'm Ashley Evans Smith and I'm just like, okay, I'm in the top 15, but she loses some, wins some, but, she can't, her progress is not that, it's not like she doesn't progress at like this amazing rate, and she's big for the weight class. Yeah, I would probably move to 145 and just see how I can do in that division. Um, but otherwise, yeah, as far as the talent they have now, I've heard arguments of like, oh yeah, just get like fighters from other combat sports. It's like, okay, so you're gonna get a bunch of 0-0, like fighters with no pro MMA record into the UFC, and like hope that they can groom these potential prospects or something. It's like, this is the UFC. This is not the regionals. I mean, yeah, we'll get like a regional level fight here and there, but come on, a whole division of that. It just, and this fight wasn't that great too. Only Holm was coming off a 2-fight losing streak. Durandami 2-fight win streak over Panda Almos and Larissa Pacheco. It's not like she's not some world beater. She didn't really show herself to be some like world beater, in this fight. she's all right, but I can't say that I'm particular like, wow, Javanda Randami, wow, she's got a wreck like everyone. It's like, okay, hey, she's a good fighter. Not gonna say she's a bad fighter. She's good, has some power in her strikes, but I'm not gonna say like, wow, she's not a wow fighter, you know. Heck, Amanda Nunes, she has talked about moving up to 145 and getting the title there. I think she'd actually, if Randami's still champion, I can see her taking her down and just passing her guard and beating her up. you know, honestly. Um, yeah. If the UFC was to implement a new division, they should have gone with women's flyweight. There's some good talent in there. Andre KGB Lee, Agnieszka Nedwidge. I think it's, as far as quantity goes, I mean, it is actually, it has the most fighters quantity-wise on the Invicta roster. And then you have fighters that can probably move up. Gedalia would be really good at 125. You can maybe see a Shevchenko move down. Yeah, it'd kill women's bantamweight, hurt women's strawweight, but it would actually be a pretty good division. And then, like I said, you have talent in there already too, prospects and whatnot. It's a pretty young division too. But yeah, so there's my rant on women's UFC women's featherweight division. It when it was announced, it was already off to a bad start. Now that the title is there, it's still off to a bad start. I mean, 3 fighters in the division. Um, One of them was just flagged by USADA. The biggest star was flagged by USADA. It's just like it's off to a really bad start, and I don't really see where it's going, and I can see it being maybe a scrap division after a year or so, honestly. So I have that Anderson Silva defeated Derek Brunson by unanimous decision. So this was quite controversial for the one reason that Derek Brunson was doing pretty well. Silva has this really bad habit, and I've seen this in a couple fights now, where he'll go for the tie plum with a lot of space between him and his opponent, and the opponent will just start throwing punches, and Anderson Silva just kind of takes it, and it's just really odd. Um, I gotta say, Anderson Silva's counter wrestling and takedown defense was quite stellar in this fight. I mean, the sprawls in the middle of the cage are really good. Granted, Brunson wasn't doing good shots. His takedown defense against the cage was good. He got taken down. He got back to his feet. He traditionally actually stays on his back when he's taken down. His takedown defense was actually quite good. He very quickly pummeled for underhooks and actually got his back off against the cage quite well using shoulder shrugs and whatnot. I was actually quite impressed with Anderson Silva's takedown defense here, which traditionally has been good but not great. But it actually looked, he used a lot of tricks here. I think that's actually quite overlooked in this fight. Striker was very interesting in the sense that, like, you saw some of the like flash of Anderson and the greatness of Anderson. I mean, just the really fast counters with the lead right hook, some spinning strikes. He went for a flying knee that turned sour quite quickly, and you saw it. It's like, wow. There's at 41 years of age, there still is that like Anderson Silva in there, just these flashes of just utter brilliance, or you're just like, wow, I can't believe he did that. Can't believe how fast he did that. Um, he obviously still has, I mean, with experience, he has a huge bag of tricks. Uh, Whether he can implement all of these tools is a different story. I thought Brunson should have won, though. I thought he won like the first, especially when he kept getting like into tie plum, really bad tie plum from someone just kept punching him. I'm not super disappointed that Brunson lost because in the sense that like I can't really say he did like he did enough to win because it really was a case of like, oh hey, Silva's doing really well against Brunson in the first round. Oh, he goes for a tight plum. Oh, Brunson's hitting him a bunch of times, and then Brunson gets a couple shots here and there, and it's like, okay, yeah, I thought Brunson won the round, but he didn't put a stamp in the round per se, in my opinion. Um, I thought that they were kind of close, and Brunson honestly looked starstruck. This looked quite honestly starstruck by the fighting Anderson Silva. I'm just kind of scared of fighting Anderson Silva. Um, Despite that, though, in a sense, I'm very happy that Anderson Silva won because, as controversial as it was, the guy hasn't won in 3 years, and it's Anderson Silva. 3, 4 years or something like that. And he actually he got a win over a very credible opponent, Despite Brunson's flaws, he is a top 10 middleweight. And honestly, he's pretty good. I mean, despite his fight against Whitaker, where he stuck his chin out and started brawling and slipping all over the place, Brunson is big, he's strong, he's a good wrestler, he can strike and has some power in his strikes. He fought a more measured fight here too, but he didn't do a lot. Yeah, he's not a bad middleweight, but like I said, I don't feel he in some of the rounds that people thought he won, that I thought he won, I don't feel like, which is primarily round one, I just don't feel that Brunson put a stamp in round one, and I kind of understand the 29-28 in that sense. 30-27, I don't get at all. With that said, I kind of want Anderson Silva to retire. I really do. I think he's going to keep fighting. He seems like he's in a good place in his life, though. He's having fun and whatnot. Uh, Throughout the build up to this event, he seemed quite jovial from what I heard from journalists and whatnot, and just in a good mood. Um, Good for him. I would have liked it. Personally, I would have liked to see him retire, though, just because he's coming off a win, and, he's the greatest of all time, according to most. Maybe it's GSP or whatnot, but um, it's just nice to see guys coming off of win, retiring off a win. I would have liked to see that. If he wants to stay, I mean, I guess he can get the winner of Belfort versus Gaslam. If Rashad Evans is still around, Rashad Evans versus Anderson Silva would be cool. Rashad's fighting Daniel Kelly, and wow, Daniel Kelly is one of those guys that is tough as nails. Brunson can get the loser. He's on a 2-fight losing streak now. You can get the loser of Latis versus Alvey, or maybe the loser of Belfort versus Gaslam. And I know it was the last fight on Tim Boesch's contract, but if Boesch does resign, Brunson versus Boesch would be good as well. Next fight, that Renato Jacare Souza defeated Tim Boesch by Kimura in the first round. Um, I think we kind of figured that this would happen. I said this in my previews or in my predictions, but I did call Renato Jacare Souza to win by arm lock. And I said this because Tim Boesch, when he fought Phil Davis, got Kimura'd. And I'm thinking, wow, Jacare, one of his best moves is the Kimura. So I was like, yeah, if he takes him down, I can see Tim Boesch just getting Kimura'd, or some form of arm lock, most likely a Kimura. Okay, so what happened? Jacare actually shoots from way outside. Tim Boesch defends a takedown. I think Souza actually did get hit. Then Jacare takes him down again, passes the mount beautifully, and then just Kimura's him and would have ripped his arm off if Boesch didn't tap. Um, so, and that's what happened, and it was just kind of a stay busy fight for Jacare. Now he's on a win streak, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I'd like to see Jacare get a title shot against Bisping. Bisping is fighting Yoel Romero. I'd like to see Jacare fight the winner of Yoel Romero versus Bisping. And I think he deserves it because besides the Rockhold fight, I don't think there's really many other fights I'd like to see Jacare fight in. Tim Bosch, I believe it's the last fight on his contract. Wondering if he'll resign or not. He should just fight more like mid to lower tier guys in the division. So I thought Glover Teixeira defeated Jared Cannonier by unanimous decision. So I said this in my predictions actually that Teixeira, if he wins, it's because I actually said by finish, by sub, because he has more ways to win the fight than Jared Cannonier. I also said that Teixeira has a really good single leg takedown. What did he use in this fight? The single leg takedown. I mean, he used a single leg takedown and grinded out a victory. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing. He got rocked by Cannonier at the end of the first. Still got 3 30-26s across the board. I mean, Cannonier, too much too soon. I mean, and here's the thing with Glover Teixeira. The dude's a veteran. Guy's been there for a while. And veterans, they know how to win. I mean, at the end of the day, if a veteran needs to grind in order to get a victory, they will. You'll see it with a lot of veterans. I remember seeing Evan Dunham do that to Ross Pearson. Oh, hey, I can take this guy down all day. Cool. That's what I'll do. Patrick Cote, if he can take a guy down and just kind of grind on top of them, that's what he'll do. You know, you'll just see it. You know, Anderson Silva against Eric Brunson. Oh yeah, crowd booing me. Cool. Oh, I throw a strike here, throw a strike here. Right now, counter him. Cool. Won the fight. It's, you know, veterans. I can say a lot of examples of just, oh, hey, you know, I can take the guy down, grind out a victory, win the round. Cool. That's what I'll do. That's what Teixeira did. You know, yeah, he can finish guys on the feet. But, hey, this was working. Cannonier has no defense against it. He has no defense against, you know, on the bottom. He's, I guess, the inferior fighter or not as skilled on the bottom as Glover Teixeira is on top. Cool. He'll win that one. That's the thing you got to realize about veterans. That's what I call veteran savvy. And yeah, you know, Glover Teixeira was fighting a guy that isn't necessarily young, but young in MMA, hits hard, and whose method of winning was to get the knockout standing. So Teixeira takes fight to the ground. It's fine. It's not aesthetically pleasing, but, you know, it gets a much needed win after getting blasted by Anthony Rumble Johnson. That said, Glover should probably fight the winner of Jimmy Manuel versus Corey Anderson next, or Teixeira versus Shogun would be a fight that I know Teixeira has wanted for a while now. Jared Cannonier should probably just move back to, like, the mid of the division. I don't want to see him fight other prospects per se. Like, I don't want to see him fight Nikita Krylov. So I don't want him to fight, because Cannonier at this point, despite his age, still a prospect. He's pretty good. I don't know what like mid-level guys exist at light heavyweight at this point, but whoever exists out there, that's who I want Jared Cannonier to fight. As far as that, Dustin Poirier defeated Jim Miller by majority decision. I don't agree with the majority decision. Despite the fact that Jim Miller just totally busted up Poirier's leg, and this was quite a fun fight. I thought that Dustin Poirier won pretty much every round. And that was the story of the fight, though, that he busted up Dustin Poirier's legs. And that Poirier decided to brawl when maybe he shouldn't have. Third round was interesting just because in the sense that Poirier's leg was just more or less gone and went to his wrestling. That was actually really smart of the guy. And, you know, managed to grind out that round. Good for Poirier here. And, fun fight. Miller's still in it, man. This guy got hit with some hard shots and was still there. I was quite surprised. I mean, I think the only time he got stopped by strikes was a head kick by Donald Cerrone. He's been wobbled before and whatnot. He's been stunned, but like, man, he is still tough as nails. Yeah, Jim Miller should just be testing more prospects. Heck, if you want to give him like an Islam Makhachev, that's cool, or whoever in light heavyweight, that's kind of a prospect. Hey, give him those guys, or maybe veterans too. Um, 'cause he fought Diego, he fought Lozon. Who else is out there? Just whoever is like veteran would be pretty cool too. That'd be fun. Poirier though, just get some top 10 guys. Give him Michael Chiesa would be cool. Or the winner of Barboza versus Dariush would be cool too. Okay, on the FS1 prelims, Belal Muhammad defeated Randy Brown by unanimous decision. So Randy Brown, despite all his athletic gifts, he is a case of a guy that, honestly, despite getting wins in the UFC, I feel was signed to the UFC just too soon. His wrestling, takedown defense has improved, but Graves and Muhammad have both shown that you can take this guy down if you go like aggressively for the takedowns, maybe even trying to hit that second takedown. Um, if the first takedown has worked, maybe get that second takedown. And I guess the other thing that Randy Brown doesn't do is check leg kicks. So, and in the UFC, you're fighting the best guys. I mean, it's guys that if they see a weakness, they will take advantage of that weakness. I mean, that's just the way it goes. And you're not gonna, people say, oh, well, he should, check these leg kicks. Well, yeah, hey, he should do that. But the fact of the matter is, if it's not in your game to do it, if it's not something you actively try to do, and if it's not something you were practicing for against this particular opponent, you're probably not gonna do it mid-fight. It just doesn't happen. That's like saying like, oh, Ronda Rousey should move her head, has no head movement. Well, yeah, look at her posture, look at her stance. She wasn't in a position to even utilize head movement. And once again, you have to actively practice it, and it maybe they were in the gym. I don't know. But if the fight is any indication, they probably did not practice that particular skill set that they should have used. Granted, I did not think that Belal Muhammad would go for leg kicks. I thought I was actually quite wrong in this fight. In the sense that I thought Belal Muhammad would just box, and that wasn't the case. He used the leg kicks. He used a lot more wrestling. I noticed he used a good amount of wrestling in his last fight. And, he used a good amount of wrestling and took the back in this fight as well. Belal Muhammad still solid. He's still one of those guys that's like solid but not spectacular. The fight, losing against like Vicente Luque, the way he did, still shows his flaws. He doesn't really move his head that much in the striking. And, it's just going to cost him. And he's generally shorter than a lot of his opponents too. Randy Brown still has a lot of flaws, and he's still young enough to fix them. But he's one of those guys that came from looking for a fight by the Dana White show. And one of the biggest problems with that show is that he is picking up these prospects that are just not ready for the UFC. They're just not. That. And it seems like just about every one of the guys that are picked up from looking for a fight have a hole in their game that gets exposed in the UFC. I mean, that's just the way it works. Whether it's Sage Northcutt, he gets taken down. The guy has no ground game. Randy Brown. There's that one dude that was just picked up and looking for a fight that has like no athleticism whatsoever. I mean, watch out, I guess that's something to look out for. Watch out for these looking for a fight guys. Guys coming out of tough, there are a couple of them that are actually pretty good and ready for the UFC. There are guys from looking for a fight that just, they'll get a win or two in the UFC, but then they get exposed, or else they don't get wins in the UFC, and get exposed. So that's what happens. Both guys just get more mid to lower tier guys of the division. So I thought Wilson Hayes defeated Oka Sasaki by unanimous decision. Big mistake by Hayes in that third round, get his back taken, concerning his jiu-jitsu background. Hayes was able to take Sasaki's back. Got some really nice takedowns on Sasaki. I mentioned the deep half game that he has. He actually utilized it once in this fight, which is pretty cool. Um, but yeah, Wilson Hayes, underrated wrestler. Um, Very underrated wrestler at this point. Has a really off his back. He's looking for that deep half, which he's really good at. And if he's on top, he is looking to mount and or get take the back, and he's really good at that too. I thought this fight was actually pretty fun. There's a lot of good technique involved and whatnot. And Oka Sasaki was in the fight at the very least throughout. With that said, if you want to go with Wilson Hayes, Demetrius Johnson, because Demetrius doesn't have an opponent scheduled, that'd be cool. I would still like Demetrius Johnson to fight Hushi Formiga, because Formiga has beaten Wilson Hayes. Formiga is a top 5 fighter. Um, if not, Hayes versus Demetrius is alright, I guess. It's a fresh opponent. Hayes is coming off he's coming off a good win, like not a good win streak, but a win streak. Um, if not, Horiguchi, number 1 contender fight. Hayes versus Horiguchi would be cool. And despite him coming off a list, Cejudo versus Hayes would be pretty neat too. So I thought Islam Makhachev defeated Nick Lentz by unanimous decision. One of them was a 30-25. This was cool because I was very unsure about this fight because I know that Nick Lentz is ultra aggressive, but I actually said in my predictions, if this goes to the wrestling, then I think Islam is gonna win in that sense. And that's what happened, man. Islam's takedowns were just beautiful, man. Some of those trips, man, were just great stuff, and he was able to grind the grinder pretty much. Nick Lentz is a notorious grinder, and Makhachev's stand up just looked clean. It wasn't like wow per se, but like everything he threw was nice. Everything he threw was clean. I liked what I saw from Islam Makhachev, and I'm very high on his potential moving forward. I think that he is going to be. I think he is a very good prospect. Has some outstanding wrestling, diversity in his takedowns, and his stand-up looks to be improving. He was much bigger than Nick Lentz, so one thing about Makhachev too, he's not small for the weight class. He's a good size 155er, and yeah, I'm curious to see more from him. He beat a really tough guy. Nick Lentz isn't particularly well known, but those that know him to be at least one of those tough outs of the division. And he beat him convincingly, man. Through 2:30-25s against Nick Lentz, that's pretty tough to do. Makhachev made it look pretty easy. So with that said, I think Makhachev should fight just more mid-level guys. Just develop a little more. Maybe some more tough outs, if need be. Go and give him like a Jim Miller, that'd be cool. Give him that one test. That'd be pretty cool too. Nick Lentz, just make him gatekeeper at this point. He is a tough out, always fighting, that no matter what position he's in. And yeah, just more like prospects or whatever, mid-level guys of the division. So I thought Rick Glenn defeated Felipe Nover by split decision. Nover did a lot better than I thought he'd do. He was the quicker fighter here. He threw shakedown defense actually wasn't that bad. But he did, if I'm not mistaken, I'm kind of blurring now. I think he did get taken down briefly. Standing, I think Glenn just does a little more. But Nover was just a faster guy. And this is going to be the biggest problem with Rick Glenn, man. I like the guy. He is tough as nails. He took some head kicks from Nover. But dude ain't fast. Dude is not athletic. I don't know how far he's going to go at 145 because of that. He's tough, relatively technical, but He is just lacking in athleticism, and guys are going to. If Nover's gonna outspeed you, a lot of guys, and I'm not saying Nover's slow or anything like that, but he's kind of the standard, honestly, of the division as far as like speed goes. And Rick Glenn is slower than that. So it's a good win for Rick Glenn. He finally got his first win in the UFC, but I was pretty high on him as a prospect, but I don't know. After this fight, I gotta say, I think that athleticism is gonna hurt him in the future. Nonetheless, I'd still like to see him against some more mid-level guys of the division. Nover's coming off what 2-fight losing streak. He could get cut, man. They are cutting fighters like crazy and trimming that roster. So Nover might want to watch out, not just more lower tier guys in the division. And finally, Ryan LaFleur defeated Ron Carnero by unanimous decision. I like Ryan LaFleur. I think he's a good fighter. He is actively looking to improve his stand-up, and it is showing here. He has a good body kick, but I kind of wish he'd set that up a bit more. He has a good left hand, too, which is pretty strong, and his wrestling's actually quite top-notch. Yeah, he did get taken down by Canelo, I think mounted, but it was the end of the round. Nonetheless, he is very much a workman-like fighter, and he's gonna be a pretty tough out for a lot of guys. He survived 5 rounds with Damon Maya. He got mounted quite a bit in that fight, but hey, that's quite a feat. To that against Maya, and actually took that 5th round from Maya. So um, he can go 5. So I think Ryan Flair is going to be a tough out for a lot of guys. I can actually see him crack the top 15. I think his lack of having a specialized skill set is eventually going to catch up to him. But he could just turn out to be like a Neil Magny. Neil Magny is like that too. He doesn't have one particularly specialized skill set, but is a total workhorse. And Ryan LaFleur could potentially be that guy. Um, and then Neil Magny also lost to Damian Maya too. Uh, so yeah, I like what I see from Ryan LaFleur against a mid card of welterweight. I can see him winning more so than losing. So when he gets really high up there, that we'll see what he does against guys with those specialized skill sets. Ron Carnero, he is coming. He won his last fight, very lackluster win. He lost here. I guess he stays in the UFC, more mid to lower tier guys of the division for him. So that's pretty much it for my post-fight analysis for UFC 208. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And please check out my author's website at www.chrismoldon.com. And please check out my storytelling podcast, Chris's Storytelling, which is called Chris's Storytelling Podcast. So that's pretty much it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.